Hi, I'm Shayna Galen, and since it's getting closer to Christmas now, thought we might want to talk about Christmas books. So today I'm talking about Christmas in Duke Street, my anthology with Grace Burrows, Carolyn Jewell, and Miranda Neville. And I believe the digital version is on sale for 99 cents right now, so hurry and grab it because that price will go up. You get four novellas, and they are really fun in that they are all set in part in a bookstore called On the Shelf in Duke Street. And so the characters kind of all come and go from this same bookstore, and the bookstore is sort of a character in all the stories. So it's fun in that way. At the end of the video, I'm just going to read an excerpt from my story. At the end of the video, I'm going to ask you a question, and I'll pick randomly from everybody who gets the right answer in the comments. And what you will win is a paperback copy of this advanced copy of Sophie Jordan's Beautiful Lawman, which comes out in January. And this is signed by Sophie. I'm not creasing it. I'm just opening it so you can see that it is signed by Sophie. So somebody will win that. So listen for my question at the end of my excerpt. So I'm going to be reading a passage from my story, which is titled A Prince in Her Stocking. And in this, the hero is a prince from a country in Europe that I made up, and they've had a revolution. And his family has been murdered, and so he's fled to London to survive, but also because some documents that would and monies were sent abroad, and the reasons are explained in the story. And he has reason to believe they're hidden in a book that are in this bookstore. So he's been going to the bookstore every day, going through all the books, looking for these documents and that money. And one day he runs into our heroine, whose name is Cassandra. She's a widow, and she waits one afternoon. She waits for him outside the bookstore as it's closing, and she just happens not to have her footman with her, and so he offers to escort her home, and they end up going to the park and sitting down and having a conversation. Okay, so A Prince in Her Stocking. Cassandra starts off by saying, her pretty eyes widened. You want to know about me? Of course. If I tell you something about me, you must tell me something of yourself. That is only fair, after all. I suppose. Do not fret, my lady. I will not seek out all your dark secrets. Her lips curled in amusement at that remark. I will give you leave to ask me 3 questions, and in return, you give me the same privilege. This was not a new game to him. He'd played it often at the royal court. Lady Ashbrook took her time to consider. The woman was no fool. Very well, she finally agreed. How do we begin? He really should have been thinking of where he would sleep tonight. Instead, he rewarded himself with another bite of currant bun. You ask me a question, and I must answer truthfully. But you also have 3 questions. He smiled. She was definitely no fool. Ladies first. She looked down at her hands again, considering her question. Lucien was disappointed to find his second currant bun had gone, and even more disappointed to realize he missed seeing her face. When she looked up again, her cheeks were once again pink. My first question is, are you really a prince? He should have known she would ask that, and he was bound by honor to answer truthfully. I am. I am Prince Lucien Charles Louis de Glenhaven. He gave a little bow, which was more theatrics than courtesy, and was rewarded by her smile. Glenhaven? I looked it up after you mentioned the language. It's a small country on the continent. Was there recently a revolution? There was. My father was overthrown as king, and I barely escaped with my life. And that is your second question. My turn. What? She stood abruptly. I didn't ask a question. You asked if there was a revolution in Glenhaven. That was a clarification, not a question. He gave her his best princely stare, but she did not back down. I'll allow it. This time, he held up a finger, but from now on, clarifications also count as questions. Fine. She sat back on the bench with a huff. His fingers itched for him to eat the last currant bun, but he wanted to savor it and thus denied himself. Instead of eating, he pondered his first question. Should he ask her if she was a widow? Yes, but how best to ask it? Who waits for you at home? I live with my late husband's sister. She will certainly worry if Rigersby returns without me. She twisted a finger of her gloves. But I am willing to risk the repercussions. English was not his first language, so that didn't make her statement any less telling. She was a widow, and she didn't like her husband's sister. If this woman, if the woman frequently imposed repercussions on Lady Ashbrook, he could hardly fault the woman for wanting a brief respite. Finally, he knew one more fact. She was willing to risk the annoyance or perhaps even anger of her family to spend time with him. He couldn't allow that. Lady Ashbrook, you have no idea how pleased I am to make your acquaintance. It's been weeks since I've had a civilized conversation with another person, and months since I have not had to pretend I am only mere Mr. Glenn. But there is a reason I choose to eschew my title. You are not safe in my company. She looked up at him, her eyes wide. Are you in danger? He ran a hand through his hair, which had grown thick and almost to his collar during his months in England. I don't know. I have every reason to believe I am the last surviving member of the royal family, and I am the heir. If the revolutionnaires realized they didn't kill me, they would stop at nothing to complete the task. I've stayed away from my friends in London, not wanting to endanger them, and because I assume that if the revolutionnaires track me here, those are the people and residences they will watch. But then where are you living? He'd scanned the park as he spoke, but now he looked back at her. That is your last question. She pressed her lips together. I know. At present, I have no home. I spend my days at the bookshop and my nights wherever I can find a bed. Don't you have any funds? Any resources? He lifted a hand. It's my turn to ask questions. She sighed with obvious frustration. She'd fallen into a very common trap, that of asking all her questions in rapid succession. How long were you married to the Viscount? 16 months, she answered. He's been gone over a year now. He had one question remaining. You still wear your widow's weeds, though the requisite year has passed. You must have loved him very much. She looked away, and for a moment he thought he had upset her, but when she looked back, her expression was firm and serious. The truth, Your Highness? He lifted a hand. Too dangerous to refer to me as such. Mr. Glenn will do. She looked as though she might protest, but then she sighed. The truth is, Mr. Glenn, that I didn't love him at all. And so that's part of my story in Christmas in Duke Street. So here is your question to answer in the comments section in order to win Sophie's book. And the question is, what is the title of my novella in Christmas in Duke Street? I said the title several times before I read it. You could also, I'm sure, look it up on my website or on Amazon or any of the bookstore places that sell books. So I hope you're having a great beginning to December, and I will see you again next week. I think next week I'm going to talk about gentlemen's clubs in London and chat a bit about that. So I'll see you then.